Hey guys, how's it going? My name is Dan Kwan. I am a full stack software developer. Been working in the startup industry for about 7 years now, building out mostly MVPs, iPhone apps, things of that sort, typical Silicon Valley startups, a couple dev shops here and there. And I've been doing that for about 7 years. In this channel, what I do is I go through some of my experiences and I try to recount some things that my clients have done well, some things that I haven't done quite as well, and hopefully to help you kind of figure out your next steps in your journey through the startup world, or even just building like a tech product for your conventional business, like a website or anything like that. So hopefully that makes sense. And in this video, I want to talk about a new concept. I'm just punching up my notes here. I want to talk about a concept that I call market-driven development. Now, this is a play on words from another concept called test-driven development, which is a software concept that's pretty well known, that's pretty well used. And the way test-driven development works is before you build a software feature or some sort of new part of your website, or even just the website in general, or iPhone app or whatever it happens to be, what you do is you write software that's designed to test the end result before you build the end result. So there's a whole set of software whose only job is to test the end result. And the key here is that you write the test software first, and then you write the implementation software, the actual features, in an effort to make sure that it passes those tests. So that's test-driven development. It's a very popular paradigm of coding that a lot of people use in Silicon Valley and just really all over software in general. And I think there's a lot of lessons to be learned in TDD, test-driven development, that can be applied to just regular marketing and startups and trying to grow your startup and your user base. The idea behind market-driven development, which again is a term I made up, so it's not like an official thing, is you want to identify your market funnels that have the most likelihood, the highest likelihood of converting into customers before you do any actual product development. So in other words, you don't want to build things out in your iPhone app or your website or your SaaS product, whatever it happens to be. You don't want to build any of that out until you identify the funnels that will lead to the most likely customers, or just regular users, whatever your product happens to be. And so your job before you build your actual product is to identify those funnels. And then once you've done so, build your feature set or your product in compliance with the general nature of that funnel, the proclivities of that funnel, the people who go to those websites, basically. So really the idea behind this is that all too often what I see is founders will just build with all these assumptions about their customer that are almost certainly wrong. And next thing you know, they've been building an iPhone app or a website for 6, 7, 8 months, spending all sorts of crazy money and time, building a product that no one wants. And this happens very, very commonly. It is not unusual at all. But the most common denominator amongst all of these experiences is that every founder thinks he or she is the exception to that rule. And you're not. You're going to find out the hard way that the customer, the user, dictates the development. And until you can wrap your head around that and sort of get your head around that equation, you're going to fall into the traps that I've seen a million times. So market-driven development is a paradigm that's designed to address that. So let's go through some of the key tenets of market-driven development. Step one is to identify funnels. So let's say we're trying to build a real estate investing like SaaS product, right? Some just sort of SaaS product for real estate investors, just a generic tech startup, right? Before you build anything, before you build any kind of database, any kind of UI, mockups, whatever, the first thing you want to do is identify who is your customer and where do they hang out. Not necessarily physically, although that could be the case, but like in the digital world, where does your customer hang out? So maybe your customer, your user, are people who are interested in investing in real estate. That's your customer. And you want to be even more specific than that if you can, like people who are interested in investing in land in Florida, or maybe you're targeting more people who are investing in like real estate trusts, like a REIT, R-E-I-T, REITs, depending on what kind of financial instruments they're looking at. Those are two different kinds of customers. So you have to figure out which one you're more interested in first, you're targeting first, and then figure out where they hang out digitally. So that's number one. And once you identify those funnels, those potential funnels, then it becomes a matter of trying to produce content and seeing how those funnels respond to that content. This brings me back to one example back when I was living in New York City of a person who just didn't understand this concept. So she was building, she was one of my former clients, and she was building a very technical product, and she tried to get her spinning class to sign up. And that's not a funnel. The people in her spin class are just not technical people. And she was trying to get her spin class to sign up for her highly technical product. It didn't make sense. She wasn't even thinking in terms of funnels. And a lot of time gets wasted this way, a lot of time. So you really need to make sure you understand where your customers hang out. Let's see, that could be, YouTube. Maybe you need to create a YouTube channel. Maybe you need to blog a lot on Medium or wherever you want to, WordPress, whatever you think is better. It might be physical. You might have to go door to door and just knock on people's doors in their place of work or whatever in your office building. So, a typical funnel for like Girl Scout cookies is girls give their parents the cookies to sell in their office. That's a funnel. That's technically a funnel. Facebook groups, Reddit, LinkedIn, Quora, whatever, the usual social networks. And you kind of want to cast a wide net and see which one of those has the customer that you're looking for, has the right profile of individual. You don't want to do everything at once. You want to pick one and experiment and see how it goes. So let's say we go with our real estate SaaS product and we begin with Facebook. So we look on Facebook and we join maybe 10 groups, all focused on real estate investing, right? And that's going to take a couple days for all the groups to approve. And then next thing you want to do, let's say we stick with that example. So we're experimenting with the Facebook funnel. The next thing you want to do, so this would be step 2, is test the funnel's responsiveness, what I call stickiness. How responsive is that funnel to your content? So in the case of this Facebook example, what we would do is create a handful of Facebook posts, maybe 5 or so, 4 or 5, that go to different areas of your landing page, the general copy of your website. So you should have something up, some sort of branding site, but you should not have built the entire product yet. Just some sort of landing page that promotes what you're going to do, and maybe a blog, right? And maybe the landing page has 3 pages, all promoting different features of your real estate investing product, right? Maybe one of them really accentuates how it sends you notifications when certain properties come available, and another page focuses on which portfolio managers have the best performance. I don't know, whatever, I'm just kind of making that up. So you create content that you put on Facebook that either goes to these landing pages or maybe a blog post, and you see which one, after you post them throughout the week, you see which one drives the most traffic. Maybe the blog post is getting the most traffic. Maybe a certain feature is getting the most traffic. And on every page that you create, the blog post, the landing page, whatever, on the bottom there should be a sign-up form saying stay tuned for notifications, or sign up for a newsletter, whatever. And you want to see how many people, what percentage of your visitors do that. And from there, after maybe a week or two, you're going to get a lot of information, a lot of data on the behavior of the people from that funnel. So let's say you post on Facebook, one Facebook group, about one of your features that you plan on building that you haven't built yet. and that drives traffic. You get maybe over the next week, you get maybe 500 hits of traffic. But the average time spent on that page is only 25 seconds, and what's called the bounce rate is like 88%. It's a crazy high bounce rate. What that means is people came to your page, they stayed on there for an average of 25 seconds, and then they left. In other words, they weren't interested. They were not buying what you're selling. What that means is now you know you don't have to build that feature. Or, that's number one, or maybe you found the wrong funnel. So down the road, maybe you can try either a different Facebook group, or maybe a better funnel might be like a Reddit sub, right? And maybe you can try the same post on a Reddit sub and drive that traffic to the same page, and maybe that'll give you much better performance. Maybe you'll get 2,000 hits over a 3-day period, and then the time spent on page might be 2.5 minutes, and the bounce rate might be under 40%. That's pretty good for a landing page. And then you might start getting email subscriber confirmations, what's called a conversion. That's good. So that means you have a different funnel. You should be targeting a different funnel. If none of that's happening across multiple funnels, that feature should not be built. Hence the term market-driven development. That's the most important part here, is that you're not building stuff that people don't want. There's a lot of tweaking that goes into this. Maybe it might be a matter of your copy on the website is not very clear. People don't even understand what you're trying to sell. That happens a lot. People are terrible at communication, and most people don't read. So you need to work on the copy and really figure out how to communicate your value proposition. These are all things that go into the process. So let's say you do that for a while, and none of the Facebook groups really pan out. They all give you very bad retention numbers. Nobody comes back. Bounce rate's really high. But then you try, like you put up a few videos on YouTube. Maybe you put up 5 or 6 videos on YouTube, and all either showcasing features of your concept or just general content marketing, just real estate investment tips, things to watch out for, things to avoid, how to evaluate properties, and how to assess whether or not this is an investment-worthy property, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? So let's say you do that, and then the YouTube videos end up directing traffic to your website, which they should in your description, and you should actually use your website, your landing page on the YouTube video, kind of like I'm doing right here. And if that drives traffic, and that traffic is highly retentive, right? High time on page, low bounce rate, et cetera, then you found a better funnel. And then that you should be focusing all your energy on that, and start focusing on creating content and driving traffic that way. And then within that funnel, let's say we stick with YouTube. Let's say YouTube is your winner, right? What you want to do is start driving that YouTube traffic to various features that you are thinking about building on your product, and seeing which one gives you the best performance. Once again, in terms of time spent on page and bounce rate, and things that kind of return visitors, things of that sort. And once you've identified the best performing page or pages, now you know what to build. And then you can start working on actually fleshing out the product features. What you want to do at that point is start reaching out to some of these users on YouTube. It's very easy. They just become subscribers. You can just literally say, hey, can you guys shoot me an email, and I'd like to do some testing, which, by the way, that's how I built out Vertex. There's a whole process that went on behind that from a YouTube channel that I've been running for about 2 years. And then from there, you can start building out what your potential users would respond to, consider useful features. So let's see here. So that's the core principles, the core precepts behind market-driven development. You're doing a lot of the marketing research first before you start hammering out product and building out features. This is something that none of my clients have done in 7 years of building startups. MVPs, mostly in New York City, but occasionally some in Silicon Valley and Europe. We're talking at this point 35, 40 something clients. And almost always it's the same story. We build something for 3, 5, 6, 7 months. It might be me and a team of like 4 other engineers, sometimes more. It's a lot of money. And we're all just hammering away. And then after maybe 6 months, the founder or the founders are like, we're going to do a huge release party or whatever. And then they do that, and then nothing happens. That's it. And then that's when the fun begins. That's when people start panicking. Founders really start. They really start to see how hard this game is, and most of them do wash out. Now, my point is, much of this can be avoided, especially if you raise the kind of money that my clients do. A big portion of that at the early stages should be devoted to market-driven development. And if you do that right, there's no reason why you shouldn't set yourself up for greater likelihood of success. This reminds me of a gym I used to go to when I was living in New York. It was a high-end gym that they had built in 2015, or it might have been 2014. So, and I was living in New York before then, so I was watching it get built. And one of my friends works for that company, and he was explaining to me how like they had done a humongous amount of demographic research and focus group studies and things like that for like a year before they decided this is a good spot to build our gym. And so they had people come in, they did all these interviews, they did all this focus group testing on whether or not they would like whatever XYZ feature, and then a year later they built this beautiful, gorgeous gym. All the research and essentially the market-driven development happened before the decision was made to build the gym, and then I signed up and it was great. That's how you want to look at it. It's very easy to get seduced by kind of your imagination. Like, oh, everyone's gonna love this idea. No, they won't. They won't. I promise you, they won't. Test it. Market-driven development. You will be amazed at what people do not want. So you need to test it and then figure out what people do want. Not what you want, what your customers want, and then build off that. Build. And then down the road, if things go really, really well, you should be getting some sort of traction, what's called product market fit. And then you can grow off that maybe a year after that. Then you can start building kind of your own stuff and experimenting with your own ideas, right? So everyone thinks a guy like Steve Jobs, like he invented the iPhone and he became, Steve Jobs. Well, obviously that's true, but don't forget, before that, he was making computers like anyone else, like Bill Gates, like Michael Dell. Like they're just making computers, right? Steve Jobs didn't invent the computer. Now, what he did was he created a very, very nice computer. I'm using a Mac myself, but he didn't create the computer. He didn't invent the computer. I don't think so, and he certainly didn't dominate that marketplace first, but he captured, a big share of that marketplace, and then he started building his own. He just started inventing products. So that's the way you want to look at it. Amazon's another example. Amazon, when they started out in the 90s, they sold books. That's it. That's all they did. They sold books. That is all they did. But they did it in such a way that people would rather buy from Amazon than from going to a physical bookstore. And then 25 years later, they're delivering whatever using drones, or they're inventing whole new industries and whole new concepts, and so you want to look at it that way before getting ahead of yourself and trying to invent new products and shove it to a marketplace that doesn't want it. It's kind of like going to a concert, like a music concert, and the band, like they only play originals. They don't play any of their hits, and people are going to be like, come on, play the hits, right? Like imagine going to like a Springsteen concert and he's just doing all originals. I think his customers, his fans wouldn't be too happy with that. Anyway, I'm kind of going off on a tangent here. The point is, market-driven development is try to comply with the basic guiding principles behind that, and really be disciplined and patient with it. Focus on your market, focus on what they want, and then build your product. Your product roadmap should be a reflection of that. And you'll find that the more and more you do things that way, the closer and closer you get to not just building something that your customers want, but something that they're delighted to use. So when they open it up, they're like, "Oh, this is cool. This is fun. I want it. This is addictive." That's how that happens. So yeah, market-driven development. Like I said, that's not an official term. I just sort of made it up from test-driven development. So if it ever takes off, remember who came up with it. Hopefully that makes sense. Thanks for watching this video. If you have any questions or suggestions about topics, feel free to leave it in the comment section below, and I'll try and make a video out of it. Thanks a lot, and I'll see you in the next video.